Aboard TWA Flight 3, on takeoff from McCarran Field, the soft-hearted, hard-charging, caffeine-fueled, self-promoting, profanity-laced, nicotine-addicted, business-oriented, and usually optimistic sexpot and perpetual motion machine known to the world as Carole Lombard could finally see the end of the road. A Hoosier from Fort Wayne, Indiana, she was born Jane Alice Peters, the third child of Frederick and Elizabeth Knight Peters. Fred had money, and Bess came from money. Money would practically grow on every tree in the vicinity of Carole Lombard her whole life, but having money didn't mean that the kid had it easy. "I always had the feeling that I couldn't keep up," she said of a youth spent in the shadow of two older brothers, which is odd, considering that Carole Lombard gave the appearance all her Hollywood life of being comfortable in her own skin. Whether posing in a negligee or bathing suit, and nobody in the 1930s struck more cheesecake poses than Lombard, dancing on screen, shooting skeet, attending the Academy Awards dinner, camping in long johns, or lunching Gone with the Wind with 150,000 people looking on, Lombard always seemed on the verge of saying, "You bet your ass I belong here." But did she belong in her own family? Before Fred and Bess had married, he had nearly been killed in an industrial accident at the manufacturing plant owned by his father. Fred had been mashed up pretty bad and nearly lost a leg. But it was the head injury that would plague him the rest of his life, perhaps a lesion on his brain, perhaps a clot or tumor, and after his marriage to Bess and the birth of their 3 children, headaches crippled him. And then came seizures so frightening that Bess feared she would have to take the children away. The episodes didn't seem to be spells of epilepsy, the falling sickness, but more on the order of blind rages for which there was then no cure, no warning, and absolutely no defense. It was the dark cloud in an otherwise bucolic turn-of-the-century life in Fort Wayne. Jane grew up idolizing her 2 big brothers, Freddie, nicknamed Fritz, and Stuart, known as Tootie after Jane's early attempts at Stuart. Endless tagging along with Fritz and Tootie hardened Jane into a tomboy, the likes of Scout in Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. Before her 6th birthday, Jane was packed up with brothers and mother for a vacation west to California, the farthest point in the United States from Fred and his problem. As funded by Bess's well-heeled family, and later by Fred Peters himself, the group of 4 found an apartment in Los Angeles, and the vacation turned into a lifestyle. Jane was a quiet child, fair-haired, blue-eyed, with no hint of the raucous and profane personality of her adult life. She was a thoughtful girl and a follower, easy to laugh, quick with a joke, and possessing a love of the silent pictures that drew her in and spawned ambition. Mother Bess moved the family to a big house on South Harvard in the affluent Wilshire Boulevard district of Los Angeles, just around the corner from the Ambassador Hotel. Future director Delmer Daves was a childhood friend of Fred and Stuart Peters. "We were front door friends," said Daves. "We sat on the steps and talked about whatever boys talked about. And Carole was the kid sister, and really beneath our attention. She teased me about it later." Dave's expression grew sour, and he added, "Carole at that time was not an attractive girl. She was scrawny." In this neighborhood that Daves described as rather elegant, the entire Peters family fell in with the Hollywood crowd. For Jane Peters, it was a magical place to grow up. "I can remember myself as a little girl," said Carole Lombard later, "standing at the corner of Hollywood and Vine watching my idol, Gloria Swanson. Jane decided then, I too was going to have a screen career, and I've never deviated from my purpose." In 1921, at age 12, Jane landed a role in a motion picture production called A Perfect Crime by rising director Alan Dwan, then just 3 pictures away from directing action-adventure hero Douglas Fairbanks in Robin Hood. A perfect